Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to this podcast. In today's topic, Camila and I are going to discuss how can we update the guidelines and the standards in the light of new documents, some suggestions for the Colombian Ministry of Education. So, let's start.
After reading, analyzing, and discussing curricular guidelines and foreign languages standards, this is our time to reflect and be critical about the gaps we find nowadays in realities compared with that is set in the guidelines and standards.
For this, our main question is how can we update the curricular guidelines and the foreign language standards to reflect the new language ecologies our students are facing inside and outside of the classroom regarding English and really be up to date with the new suggestions of the curriculum.
Concerning that, we know that every country has their own policies for language learning. And I want to talk about one in specific, and it's Mexico. In 2011, there was some sort of education reform in which the ministers were thinking about the learning process of the children. And I won't put that in comparison with our legislation, because we haven't had like such a big reform since the 90s, when the law 115 came out.
Yes, Camila, but in SPY we have legal documents that think and kind of, rethink the process of education, and more specific, the language policies that have appeared since then. For example, we have, the basic learning rights, the standards, and the curricular guidelines.
Yes, but I want to ask, is what we have there really up to facing the needs of the students based on their context, or is it just unreachable? For example, in the standards, they talk about the benefits that has learning a second language, in this case, English. In page 8, they mention that by learning English, kids or students in general will recognize and respect other cultures. But in many cases, English is not taught with cultural aspects, only grammatical.
Unreachable, I like that word, and I feel that it fits perfectly because also in standards, in the page 10, they propose the levels according to the Common European Framework of Reference. And it says that kids in the first grade until the third must have an A1 level, and honestly, this is too ambitious.
Yes, I agree. But sometimes the teacher does not have the materials or the understanding of what is expected from them to teach, so this is very problematic.
To weigh in this matter, we want to ask a couple of questions to a great professor of the Faculty of Education, John Byron Estrada. Hello, John Byron. Thank you so much for being here. I want to ask you, in your opinion, how valid are the foreign language standards and the curricular guidelines in terms of facing the new ecologies of language?
Well, what I have to say is, I guess it depends on the focus of the program. I believe most important thing is to speak well, to write well, the correctness of language, and I think that's something that's being neglected nowadays by using Facebook and Twitter and WhatsApp. I've noticed students usually tend to forget about correctness because they want to be more, to look cool and to be like, to make part of the new tendencies. So if you write well, people apparently will frown upon that. That's why I believe we need to be, as teachers, we need to be careful with that and to always work on the correctness of the language. The other thing is, since there are so many students in every class, teachers have to come up with ideas that can actually help their students improve their language proficiency. I have noticed with these new tendencies, for example, with the communicative approach, that it is okay to make mistakes. Yeah, it's okay. They just give you, like
a free pass.
Yeah, a free pass, or they will just tap your back and say, yeah, it's okay, don't worry about that. But then when it comes to evaluation, they will take those mistakes into account. So I don't think that's very coherent. If you say, it's okay to make mistakes, and then you evaluate those mistakes, I don't think that's very coherent. So we need to think of it, and everybody makes mistakes, of course, everybody does, but it's important to learn from those mistakes, to work on them and try to improve and to get rid of them eventually, and to make evaluation something that is more connected to reality. I also believe that there's no reason for writing like most students do when they use WhatsApp or Twitter or Facebook. I mean, you can still be cool if that's what they want when you write well. So I guess that's a very important thing to keep in mind.
Thank you very much, John Byron. It's very interesting. And considering these new ecologies of language, do you think that the foreign language standards and the curricular guidelines needs modifications in order to face the needs of the new generation? If so, what would you modify?
As a matter of fact, I believe they do. I've noticed there's a huge difference between theory and what they propose and what really takes place in the classroom. Especially, to be specific, evaluation, as I said before. We expect to have students who are proficient in a second language. So I guess we need to look up the definition of proficiency. And the evaluation doesn't actually lead to such proficiency. So it's okay to use like different strategies. You use computers and videos and use your cell phones and activities online. Yeah, nothing wrong with it, as long as the final result is correctness, is to speak well, which is what it's proposed in the standards. But they say, based on the standards that I've read, they are supposed to be, for example, a B1 or a C1, according to the European Common Framework. And when they graduate, they're not even a B1 or a B or an A2. So I would change, or I would modify some aspects of the evaluation to be more demanding, so that students can really make an effort, because it's not just a matter of attending class, it's a matter of really learning. And different strategies, nothing wrong with it, but still make sure learning really takes place.
Now, we want to propose a couple of suggestions that we consider are important of revising for our educational system to be updated and competitive in today's world.
From our perspective as students and also as pre-service teachers, here's what we would suggest to the Colombian educational system. First of all, teachers should be more organized in terms of content to teach. This should be engaging and appropriate to the context and the needs of every student.
Another important aspect to change the course of education as we know it right now could be offering teachers the possibility to participate in more research projects so we can have teachers that are current in terms of information and methods.
Yes, and besides that, the evaluation system also needs adjustment. The way it is constructed, it makes children lose interest and learning, and they only focus on having a good grade or just passing the course.
Yes, Santiago. For example, students that do nothing for learning or improving their competence and instead they choose to wander around all year long and just make one simple effort and pass with the recovery week. This needs to change. What matters is not the grade or passing. What matters is learning.